Going to be a lecture on how to debug in jQuery. So I built an assignment that I basically input some bugs into. Okay, and so we're going to be walking through it together to try to debug it. Okay, so in that process you'll see sort of how I think about how to debug. Okay, so in what this jQuery assignment is supposed to be able to do is that when I click on this header, okay, this image is supposed to change. Okay, so here we have an image of my cat, and we're supposed to replace it with the image of the GitHub cat. Okay, so this image is supposed to basically become this image. Okay, as you can see, if I click on the header, that doesn't happen right now. Okay, so we're going to be debugging our code to basically figure out why that's the case. Okay, so here we have the code. Okay, so you guys could try to read the code, try to find the bug. Or we could try looking at specific tools and specific clues to try to find out why it might not be working. Okay, so what are some ideas for some things that you might want to check first?
It says attribute twice on the clickable part.
Okay, and you think it's not supposed to say attribute twice?
I think it should be attribute and then everything in parentheses in quotes.
Okay.
I think it's okay to have two attributes.
Okay. All right.
I'm wrong.
All right. So it's easy to want to jump directly to try to reading the code to find the error, and you can find the bugs that way, right? But it can be a little difficult, right? Because you could have a lot of code, right? This code is actually not that much code, okay? But if it was a lot longer, it can become a difficult task, right? To be able to read through all the code to find the bug, right? Especially if you don't understand all of it, right? Just because a lot of times you may be working with code that other people have written or that you wrote a long time ago and you kind of forgot how it works, right? So if you don't understand everything in the code, it can be difficult to read through all of it. The first thing I would check, and I think I heard someone say this, is to check console, okay? So if you do an inspect element, right-click inspect, you go to the console, and the console will actually give you some of the errors sometimes. Okay, it depends on the error, right? But the console, if there is something that the console, the running of the script or the HTML that the browser can recognize, it will tell you what that error is. Okay, so here we have a clue. Okay, so what does this mean? What does this error mean? Can you guys read it?
Yeah,
Huh? Yeah, we have extra closing parentheses, and what else? What other information can I grab from this?
Line 13.
It's on line 13. Okay, so those are the two important pieces of information to grab from this. Okay, so you always want to check error logs. Okay, so that's almost always the first place to check when you have an error. Okay, so when you're running JavaScript, this is where the error log will be, basically, right? You go to inspect element, you go to console tab, you'll see if there's any errors. If you're running Python, it'll be in your terminal. Okay, when you run Python, you're going to launch a Python application. You're going to have some terminal stuff that's running, right? You'll either see the error in your terminal, which you can look for, or you'll see it on the browser page. Okay, sometimes it can be difficult to interpret and understand what the error is. Okay, some of that comes with practice and just really understanding what these different things mean, and some of it comes with just googling with error. Okay, so between googling the error, looking for the error, and just knowing where to look inside the terminal console log, and also where to look, in an error page, you can usually narrow down where to start looking for the error. Okay, so in this example, right, we have this extra closing parentheses on line 13. So we'll go back to here, and now we can look at line 13, and we can check to see if we have an extra closing parentheses. Okay, so do you guys see an extra closing parentheses somewhere?
Yes. Right there by your cursor.
Right there, my cursor, right? Okay. So the way to check this is, right, if you highlight this, you'll see that there's these lines underneath the parentheses that match, right? So there's this line under that right parentheses and a line under the left one. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Right here and right here, right? So that means that those are the two matching parentheses. What?
Is this on Atom or just Sublime?
This is on Sublime. I imagine Atom has this functionality too. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of my clue, right? Those are matching, and obviously these two are matching, right? So then this one is probably the extra one. Okay. Now you also have to be careful with what the console tells you in terms of the line numbers of your errors, right? It will give you the line number of where it thinks the error is, right? But it's interpreting your code a little bit, so depending on what your actual error is, your error might be a little earlier, than that line number, right? You just kind of have to look at it and like think carefully about it. So it's not like necessarily on that line, but it's a good place to start. Okay. So if I get rid of this, right, and I reload the page, okay, now I no longer have this console error. Okay, so I can close this, or actually probably leave it open. Okay. And then it's smaller. Okay, I'll go back to clicking it. Nothing happens still. Okay, you check my console. There's no errors. Okay, so what next? What can we think to check? Okay, so yeah. What's the next thing we can think to check?
So just real quick, just go back a little. So you mentioned that if you click on one of the headers, the cat changes, right?
The cat's supposed to change.
How would you know that going into it? Was it because somebody told you, hey, this is the problem, or is it because you wrote the code and that's what you want to do?
Yeah, it could be either, right? Like, maybe you wrote the code and that's what you were trying to do, and so you're just trying to figure out why your code's not working, right? It could be that, it could be that someone told you there was a problem. You're trying to make that work.
But then it's not like it's obvious that this is what it's supposed to do. Like you can look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of be given that, I think, right? Okay. Like that's what you're trying to fix it, and that's what you're trying to make it do. I think at some point you should have some idea of what your code's supposed to do, I guess. Yeah. At least from like a user level, right? Like if like you're your boss or like you get like some customer service request that's saying, hey, I'm supposed to be able to click this button, something's supposed to happen, and it's not happening, right? So you should at least have some general idea what you're trying to quote unquote fix, I guess. Yeah, but that's a good question. Okay, so what else can we check?
I guess right now, let's just make sure that event handler click function works. So instead, we can comment out the attribute and just do it like alert.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so yeah, you can comment it out. You can add like alert. So say alert, hello, right? So this will confirm that we're at least able to click, right? So that will kind of isolate our problem, right? So if our problem is that this click function is not clicking off the H2 for some reason, either like we named the class incorrectly, we misnamed the clickable or something like that, right? Then that could be the error, or it could be the error inside that function, right? So this kind of basically splits in half, right? So it helps us like isolate which one it is. Now, of course, you could try to read it to try to figure out if that's the problem, right? But you could have an oversight, right, as you're reading it, right, that you didn't notice, and you wouldn't necessarily, that would be quite as bulletproof in that sense. And it's also, honestly, I think it's faster to just like try to divide it, right, than to try to like read through the code and double check if you have the error sometimes. Okay, so let's try this. This is a great idea. So we'll do this. Reload the page. Click this. Oh, okay, I have an alert dialog. Okay, so great. So that tells us. Okay, I'm not gonna get rid of this. All right. Okay. All right. So that tells us that we are hitting the click function, right, and we are trying to run this piece of code at least. Okay. The other thing you could do instead of alert would be just the console log something, right? I lean towards console logging stuff if there isn't too much that's in console log, because I don't like dealing with the annoying alert button that keeps keeping me from doing things. But either one is very viable. Okay, so if I do that and I clicked, then it says help. Okay, so all right. So what else can we do?
Why do you do attribute?
Why did I choose to attribute? Okay, so no, this comes into trying to read and understand what this code does, I guess, right? So I guess, have you guys covered attribute in the jQuery platform yet? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you need to check the class. So you have class in your body, you have class clickable, I'm sorry, I can read that well. And then in the, you have a job clickable, so this, and then,
Sorry, check what?
so I'm trying to see if it's in, so you have it as class, right?
Which one is class? Clickable?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
And then attribute, but you have the source, so that's the picture, right?
Mhm.
The color cat.
Yeah.
But you're using data outsource, but can you use attribute for that?
Maybe we just simplify the attributes sometimes. Instead of adding two, this is like limit to like $sign, and then we're selecting our image, right? So
Mhm.
that part's fine. And then I guess like on the second parentheses right here, we can get rid of this or change this to source. We want to change the name class source, right? So we
Right.
change this to source, and then we can comma, and then you can like hard code some other image.
Right.
Yeah.
You won't know what image is, so you have to give it some ID or something.
No, it will know what image is because it should just match against this image. But that's a good question, right? Like if we weren't sure, right? Okay, so here's where you have to actually understand what the code is trying to do here a little bit. Okay, so what we're trying to do, right, which is what Eric mentioned, right, is we're basically trying to this image, right, is the image of a GitHub cat, right, and this is the image of my cat, okay, and so we're trying to basically swap them, right? So we're trying to get this to go here, okay, and then that will get that image to show up. Okay, so this code is my attempt at getting that to work, right? But there's something wrong with it, okay? And so if you're not sure if we can grab it with image, right? As Axon is saying, right? Then I think one thing we can do, right?
Just have to swap the source with add source.
Hmm?
Just have to swap the source with the add source
Yes.
in the image.
You want to try swapping these two first?
The link, yeah.
Okay, so you want to try swapping like this.
Is that missing a div tag there?
Wait, hold on. I don't want to do two things at once. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to try swapping this first, right? Is what we're saying, right? So we're going to try making this the source, making this the data-alt source, right? Okay. All right. So if we do this, okay, we get this. Okay. So what does this tell us?
You don't have file numbers.
I don't have the file, right? I don't have the file. Okay. So and I know. Fortunately, we were already on the console tab, right? But if we were not, then you just have to be able to check the console tab. Okay, so great. So it says I do not have this file, right? So now we can check my folder. Okay, so here I have in my folder, right, the file. Can you guys see this? I can't make it bigger. Can you guys see that?
No underscore.
So I have the image. It's here.
But maybe the extension is it. There's the JPEG.
There's no underscore.
There's no underscore. There's no underscore. It's misspelled. Spelled, yeah. So it needs to be like this. Okay? Alright, so we can do this. Reload the page. Now we have the image. Okay? Alright, so now that image is showing, right? But we've like changed our code, so if I reload the page, it's just this image now, right? It's not my cat anymore. So we have to put it back, right? So let's put this back, data-alt source. Okay. Make this in the source. Okay, reload the page. I click. Still not happening. Okay, all right. So what's still wrong?
The div tag.
You have to.
The what?
You got an extra div tag at the end of the cat.
I have an extra div tag at the end of the cat. You're right. I do have an extra div tag at the end of the cat. Okay. All right. So let's try that again. No. Slash in the image.
You're replacing image with image.
Yeah.
Same.
So it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the same.
Simple SRC refers ATTR.
Yes. That's what I'm missing. Okay. All right. So yes. This is actually what is
Because
missing.
the first ATTR is the stated.
Yes.
The second one is the data.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, right. So this is what this is supposed to do is you're writing to this source, right? This value, right? So you have to specify that you want to write to this one, right? So that is what we're missing. Okay. Now, if you didn't recognize that, right? Let's say you were not sure if this was working. Okay, like maybe you didn't know if you're calling correctly. You didn't know if you could call it by image, right? The other thing you could do is you could just console log it. Right? You just console log that. Okay, because what we're expecting this to be, right, is we're expecting this to be GitHub_cat.png, right? So we can console log it directly. Reload the page. I click. There we go. I'm actually doing the file name, right? Or alternatively, right, you want to simplify this first to make sure it works. Just type in GitHub_cat.png, right? And then make sure that works. Okay?
But like it won't change back after the
Won't change back. Won't change back. It won't change back. This code is not written for it to change back. It just only changes the once. Yeah, yeah.
How can you change it back?
How can you change it back? If you want to change it back, you have to add another. Let's see. SMG. You have to swap it with. I'm losing the data alt source right now, I think. So, okay, I'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so I want to cover the other things you could have checked as well first. Okay, so one is you simply recognize that you need the source here, right? The other is you can simply console log it, right, to make sure that this is getting passed correctly. Okay, and it is, right? So we'll leave that here. And then the other thing you can do is you can actually go into inspecting the image, right? And you can see whether this is changing, right? So if we had, for instance, fixed this one first, and then we had left this one misspelled or something, right? It should still be changing. So you click this, right? This becomes GitHub_cat. So you know that the JavaScript worked in terms of rewriting to the DOM what that source attribute is, right? You just know it's just not showing up, right? So this is the other place you can check. You make sure that you're expecting that after you click it, it's going to do the swap, and it's going to see something different here, and you just make sure that that actually happens. Okay. Now, any other questions with this first in terms of this working and debugging, and then I'll get to how to add it, switch it back. No? Okay. All right. So if I want to make this switch back, right now, when I do this swap, right, I have GitHub_cat. Here, let's fix this first. Okay. So I click, it switches over, right? But I've lost my reference to shincat, right? Because I just overwrote it to this side, right? So how? Yeah. Anyone have any ideas of how I might? Exactly, temp, right? So I would want to store it in a temp, and I would say something like var temp equals this guy, but without the data alt, right? I can console.log this to make sure that this is working as I'm expecting. Okay, so if I go to my console, I click this, here I have shincat, right? So it means that it is being stored in the temp, right? And now after doing this setting, I also need to add this one equals to temp. Right? So if I do this, then when I refresh the page, I look at the element, I do the click, shincat is still here. GitHub packet is here, right? I go again, what's with that?
Will you change the name of the source as well?
Yeah, we changed the name of the source as well, right? So the first time, this one, we're changing the name of the source to the GitHub_cat, and then by storing shincat first before it gets overwritten, right? Kind of like your temporary variable, just like in algorithms, right? You're storing in a temp, and then you can rewrite that temp into this spot. It's kind of like today's algorithm. That's how you did swaps, right?
So we don't need to say as source instead of data alt source in the second statement here.
In the second statement, because you are writing to data outsource, and what the value you're writing is the temp, right? Because the temp is already saying shincat. If I'd said source here, I'm going to be writing GitHub_cat actually, right? Because at that point, after this line runs, it says what is being said is this, right? This is what this looks like after this line runs, right? So if I were to write to source instead, then I would just have GitHub_cat on both spaces. So I need to write from the temp.
So what I didn't understand was why don't we write to the source?
This time?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Why do we write to the data alt source?
okay, so if I yeah, it still allows you to change it back. That first time, if you want to click it, it's fine. You don't need to write the data alt source, right? But it's just that if I draw. Okay, so if I don't have this, right? Okay, I reload the page. I can click, but if I click again, Nothing's gonna happen, right? Because it's doing the swap, but it's swapping from here to here, right? But they're the same. They both say GitHub cat, right? If I add this line, then after the first swap, I still have this one that says chain cat, right? Because I'm storing it, right? And I'm storing it on the element itself inside the data alt source. Yeah, and then that way you can, in a subsequent time, you can swap back. Okay, any questions?
So when you do the click, will it like execute both two lines of code and then just show one result?
Yeah, it's gonna execute both lines of code, but I mean, it shows both results in that this is changed and this is changed. Image is just only going to show the one from source. Data alt source is just for storing extra data, right? So it's never going to show that one, right? So line 18 is what makes this one say GitHub cat, and then line 20 is what makes this one say Shane cat after the click. So there, I mean, you're seeing both results, but you're seeing both results inside inspect element, I should say. And so on the page, you only see just what's here. This part doesn't matter, right? I could delete this and it would still say the same thing. Now, of course, now it's broken, or maybe it's not broken. Oh, yeah, it is broken. Yeah, it is broken because it just got copied over. It's copied over.
It's the source switching, but you only see one result.
Yeah, you're changing both the source and the data alt source, but you're only gonna see the source. Yeah, on the page. All right.
Is it encouraged to make custom attribute tags?
Data alt source, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think data is like a general, or data alt is like a general term for
I
making
think
those
like,
custom
I think a
things.
smarter way to do it is to create these custom attributes.
Compared to what?
If statement, I guess.
The if else statement will be gone after you like.
See, I made mine switch with the if else. They're just much longer. And that's what
So if wait, so you put the if else statement
Yeah,
where?
like, if the source is Shane cat, then switch or then change source to GitHub cat. Else.
Oh, like that?
So that's what you do.
Oh, okay.
then if it's the other one, just do the first one.
This does work. It's just like there's more iteration.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. Is there one that?
This would just be like the faster. There's no, you don't have to check for any conditions.
Yeah, you don't have to check for any conditions. This is like swapping, right? Whereas yours, I mean, technically the logic is a little bit different. You have like the same result, but yours is really saying if it's this, then do this, right? And mine is more like the swap, right? So, I mean, yours kind of like if you ever have like another image, it can become more complicated, possibly, right?
So if you added a third one here, what would you do? You want three?
I mean, I could have two data alt sources, or I could have like an array that I'm storing somewhere. I don't think like having the if else is bad. I think both are probably okay for this particular case if you know that that's specifically what I want to do. Yeah. I think both are okay. There may be other instances where like I want to lean towards one or the other, but this is okay for both. I mean, I would suggest trying out both, right? Just get familiar with both.
Can you do that with a toggle? Is it different?
I think toggle.
We tried, but we haven't a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Because when you click the image, toggle will when you click the image, right, toggle will make it disappear. And now you don't have any button to click.
Oh.
So that's why toggle's like really
Well, I mean, I guess I'm working around that right now because I'm clicking H to change this. Yeah, with toggle, I mean, yeah, I guess you can, but you would need something to click, right?
Yeah.
You need to make sure you still have the event listener that will listen to something, and if it's gone, it's not there. I mean, I guess you can make it invisible, and then you can click the empty space, right? Separate button, yeah, already separate button.
Can you use toggle that's like down at the same time? So it basically make my back at the same time.
I think toggle, that's what toggle does. Like the built-in toggle function does that. So you don't have to like hide it and show it. You can just do like dot toggle.
Yeah, it just flips it.
Yeah, it's built into toggle.
Yeah. So instead of having to manually manage the hide and show yourself. Yeah. I mean, I think okay. So at the end of the day, like, there is a couple of like jQuery ones that are like really common, like .click, right? But I think like a lot of the jQuery methods are there more for you guys to like I wouldn't worry about memorizing or just like knowing every single one of the jQuery functionalities, right? Like the key thing to learn in this like JavaScript jQuery section is like how to write the logic to get it to do what you want, right? So this is like it's like practice for how to like structure your code to like work with like different pieces you have, and like to get into that mindset of like thinking about logical steps. Like if I do this, then this will happen. Like what the ordering is. It's not important to remember exactly what the explicit jQuery functions are beyond maybe like a couple of the most common ones. And like, you know, when you're working in industry, like you may or may not be using jQuery, you may be using other JavaScript, and it's just like a matter of like making sure you can plug it in to the right thing. So just keep that in mind.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, besides all this, what's the difference